Friends, have you ever found yourself drowning in hardships, wondering if God is listening? Do you question why everything seems to go wrong no matter how hard you try? Maybe you've even thought, why is God so unfair to me? If you've ever felt this way, you're not alone. Today, I'm going to share a powerful story, one that will not just touch your heart, but might change the way you see your life, your struggles, and God's plan for you. Ravi was a man who knew struggle intimately. He lived in a small, dusty village where survival was a daily battle. Every morning he woke up before the sun, heading to the quarry where he broke stones all day under the blazing sun. His hands were rough and calloused, his body always sore, yet the few coins he earned could barely feed his family. At home, Ravi's wife, Sunita, tried to stay strong, but he could see the weariness in her eyes. She worked tirelessly to stretch what little they had into meals, but it was never enough. Their two children, thin and frail, were used to going to bed hungry. The sound of their stomachs growling at night haunted Ravi, filling him with guilt and despair. One evening, as he sat outside their small, crumbling hut, staring up at the dark sky, Ravi's frustration boiled over. "Why me, God?" he whispered angrily. "I work harder than anyone I know, but still, we suffer. My children are starving, my wife is losing hope, and I have nothing to give them. Why would you do this to me? Why do you let me struggle like this?" The next day, weighed down by hopelessness, Ravi couldn't bring himself to go to work. Instead, he wandered aimlessly, his feet carrying him far beyond the village. Lost in thought, he eventually came upon a quiet clearing where a giant banyan tree stood tall and majestic. Beneath its shade sat an old monk, his eyes closed in peaceful meditation. The monk's calm presence was in stark contrast to Ravi's turmoil. Unable to hold back his emotions, Ravi approached him. "Monk," he called out, his voice trembling. The monk opened his eyes and smiled gently. "Yes, my son. What troubles you?" Ravi collapsed onto the ground in front of him. "Why does God make life so difficult?" he asked, his voice cracking with despair. "I work from morning till night, but it's never enough. My family is starving. My children have no future. Why does God punish me like this? Why does He let me suffer so much?" The monk listened patiently, his expression full of understanding. After a moment, he said, "Your pain is real, my son, and your questions are not wrong. But sometimes we only see a small piece of God's plan and mistake it for the whole. Let me share two stories with you. Perhaps they will help you understand." Ravi wiped his tears and nodded, desperate for answers. The monk began, "Once there was a farmer who planted bamboo seeds. He watered them every day, tended the soil, and waited. For an entire year, nothing grew. The second year passed, and still, there was no sign of life. The neighbors mocked him, calling him foolish for wasting his time. But the farmer didn't stop. He continued to water the seeds for 3 more years, even though the ground remained barren. Then, in the 6th year, something incredible happened. The bamboo suddenly shot out of the ground and grew 90 feet tall in just 6 weeks. Ravi furrowed his brow. How is that possible? Nothing happened for so long. The monk smiled. During those 5 years, the bamboo was growing its roots deep into the ground. Without those strong roots, it could not have supported its rapid growth. My son, life is often like that. The struggles you face today are building your foundation, preparing you for something greater. You may not see it now, but God is laying the groundwork for your future." Ravi sat quietly, the story stirring something in his heart. The monk continued, "Let me tell you another story. There was once a young boy whose father gave him a massive puzzle. It had thousands of tiny pieces, and the boy was excited at first. But as he began to put it together, he became frustrated. The pieces didn't seem to fit, and the picture made no sense. After hours of struggling, he cried out to his father, "Why did you give me something so hard?" The father smiled and said, "Trust me, son. Keep working and you'll see." Though frustrated, the boy kept going piece by piece. Finally, after days of effort, he placed the last piece. When he stepped back, he realized the puzzle formed a breathtaking image of a sunrise, something so beautiful it took his breath away. The monk looked at Ravi and said, "Life is like that puzzle. When you're in the middle of it, the pieces don't seem to fit, and it's hard to understand why things happen the way they do. But if you keep going and trust God, one day, you'll see the full picture. And it will be more beautiful than you can imagine." Ravi's eyes filled with tears. For the first time in years, he felt something other than despair. "So, even my pain, even my struggles, they have meaning?" The monk nodded. "Yes, my son. God sees what we cannot. Every hardship you face is shaping you, strengthening you, and preparing you for something greater. Trust His plan, even when you cannot understand it. He has not forgotten you." Ravi bowed deeply to the monk. "Thank you," he said softly. As he walked back home, his steps felt lighter. His circumstances hadn't changed, but his heart had. For the first time in years, Ravi felt a spark of hope, a belief that his struggles were not in vain, and that God's plan, though hidden, was unfolding in ways he could not yet see.